Hi everyone, I'm Ravi Kapur with continuing coverage of the Democratic National Convention. We're joined now by Neil Makhija, who's the new Executive Director at the Indian American Impact Group, which has two parts, right? They have a PAC as well as an organization that helps spearhead Indian Americans into political office. Neil, great to see you as always. Tell us about this new role, and Impact has already been a part of the Biden-Harris campaign. We saw there was a very large Indian Americans for Biden event, and Impact was front and center on that.
It's a really exciting role, and thank you for having me on. It's great to see you in this context. Of course, I was someone who ran for office. Although I didn't make it, I'm really thrilled to be directing Impact now, because it's an organization that would have helped me and many people like me, and will do that in 2020, and has been doing that for the last couple cycles. We have endorsed Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I should say Biden-Harris, but we're particularly excited about Kamala. She's really been with us from the founding of our organization. Deepak Raj and Raj Goyal, who founded this in 2016, really wanted to give our community a political voice and a forum to convene and bring together political actors, but also people who work in other sectors and just want to, have a voice in the American political system. So this year is really exciting in that we have 70 people running nationwide, and Impact is going to endorse a subset of those people, and really kind of go all in and see where we can make the biggest difference.
Well, tell us about that, Neil, because Impact now has raised money over the last few years, and has a campaign right now to raise even more. And they are picking candidates to support all over the country. This year has been really interesting, because we do have so many folks of South Asian descent that are running for office all over the country. In fact, we've had a couple of Indian American women running in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. We have in the Bay Area, we have a couple of Indian American candidates, one a Democrat, one a Republican, running for a House seat. Tell me about, as time progresses, you're going to have certainly more candidates of Indian American heritage that are going to be running, and they might be running against each other. So what qualities are you looking for in a candidate to support?
Sure. So, just an example on the numbers. In 2012, we had Ami Bera. 2016, one presidential cycle later, we had 5. And our population did not, increase fivefold in that time. What changed was our engagement. And that's certainly what we're seeing this cycle. So, what we look for is, really what our community would look for, which, who really kind of represents our values, and at the most basic level, inclusion, and, who is really looking to represent the entirety of their community. And, when people wonder, I'm often asked, is the Indian American community big enough? Is it really matter? Is it good? That's the first, yes, it is. But second, it's the wrong question, because, we approach politics from the mindset of, you can't let anyone, you can't write anyone off or leave anyone out. So I think we have some really great candidates like Hiral Tipirneni in Arizona, as you alluded to, and Sri Kulkarni in Texas. They're really running on messages of representing everyone in their district, and that's why they're going to flip those districts and really make history for their communities. So I mean, there are 2 examples. I just seen some numbers. It looks like Hiral's ahead in a district that was kind of unimaginable for a Democrat to win. And I think that's because they really are building on these inclusive messages that are refreshing in the light of kind of what we've seen in politics today.
Well, take us through Senator Harris joining this ticket, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe Impact endorsed her presidential run as well. And now that obviously she's on the ticket, certainly that solidifies the endorsement that Impact made a year plus ago. What is it about Harris that's going to draw Indian Americans in particular to the Biden ticket? Because, the reality is President Trump has made a serious overture to Indian Americans over the last 4 years, including having that major Howdy Modi event last fall. So take us through what the Harris candidacy means in the context of taking on President Trump.
Yeah, it's an extremely important question. And I think what Senator Harris can do that really no other candidate could do before is really tie all of our national threads together in a way that shows that we are really kind of bound together. And it's not just about supporting her because she's an Indian American. It's about supporting her because her history shows us, for example, her father was Jamaican, her mother is from Chennai and then Madras, but they met during the civil rights movement. And during that time, when Black leaders and activists were fighting for civil rights and legal protections, that's when the immigration reform of 1965 passed, which really is what allowed Indian Americans to come to this country and to make it their own. And so there's a thread that ties us together, which is that when we fight for our ideals and not necessarily just our group, we benefit people who we haven't yet imagined. And I think Kamala can tell that story and in the process build a coalition of all communities that are inspired by her because she's a woman, because she will be the first African American and the first Indian American, but really is defining America in that process as a place that our families kind of dreamed of in terms of coming to and finding opportunity no matter their background, but because they have the spirit and the desire and the work ethic and really wanted a place where they felt they had a fair shot no matter what kind of rung in society they felt like they were in before. And I think she can tell that story better than anyone else. And in terms of Trump, I just don't think his message of division and kind of building walls is going to resonate with Indian Americans on the whole. I think we kind of see that kind of pandering or appeal to people's baser instincts and fears, but I think we appreciate a message of unity and seeing what we have in common with other communities as well.
So Neil, you ran a couple of years ago yourself in a swing state, Pennsylvania, and you were appealing to a rural community in particular. Let's talk about some of the swing states where Indian Americans can play a role. Certainly, I'm sure you know about all the data. I've heard, in particular, Pennsylvania is one of those key states that both sides want to win. What is it going to take in the middle of a pandemic to get the outreach to folks like Indian Americans to vote for the Democratic ticket or the Republican ticket? But certainly, I think in your case, you would like to see Harris and Biden take those votes.
So I think together they are a great ticket for a place like Pennsylvania, and the reason is one, Joe Biden is from near where I grew up. He's from Scranton, and I think he understands that people in that region are really kind of hurting in a way. We had industries that have disappeared over time, and there's a desire to rebuild the economy, or as he has this build it back plan that he's spoken about. And I think Kamala also understands that, and she also, coming from California in places where there is serious innovation, for example, whether it's in Silicon Valley or in the clean energy space, I think she has ideas about how we can do that, and those ideas can be brought to places like Pennsylvania where we need our industry revitalized. In terms of Indian Americans, I mean, we have 156,000 here in Pennsylvania, many in the Lehigh Valley, in the Philadelphia area, and also in Pittsburgh. And I think when we're looking at elections that are so close, so Pennsylvania was decided by 40,000 votes last time, as many people know, you cannot write any community off or count anyone out. and it's really the responsibility of the campaigns to reach every voter, whether or not they voted before. So oftentimes campaigns will write people off and say they didn't vote last time, so they're probably not going to vote this time. That kind of thinking needs to end, and will probably be proven wrong when you have a candidate like Kamala and she's inspiring new communities to vote.
Tell us the breakdown of Pennsylvania in particular, because Pittsburgh has a different dichotomy than Philadelphia itself and the other parts of the state. Tell us about where the ground game will be in a state like Pennsylvania.
Well, it's hard to have any ground game in the time of COVID, but traditionally what people have thought as the battleground were the Philadelphia suburbs. And they are becoming more Democratic. And meanwhile, the rural areas like the ones I grew up in are becoming more Republican. So we're seeing increasing polarization within the state. So it's almost even hard to say kind of where is the swing area or the battleground. And really, it could be a question of turnout. And who's going to turn out their voters, whether it's in the burbs in Philly or in the more rural areas. But the idea of the swing voter, perhaps unfortunately, is disappearing quickly, and part of that can be because of the polarization of media, and nobody's watching the same shows anymore. And there's a kind of different set of facts that people are working on. There's a number of factors at play there, but it looks like it's going to come down in Pennsylvania to kind of the turnout of the suburbs and how much more they're trending Democratic, and whether or not Donald Trump, is going to turn out those rural voters that have been part of his base for a while. But this is me speaking as my side profession as a Pennsylvania expert. But today in my in my role as Impact, I will say that 156,000 Indian Americans in the state it's a pivotal constituency.
And historically, have Indian Americans voted for Democrats in Pennsylvania, or is it a little bit more even?
So we are at a point where we want that data, and it hasn't really been conducted yet. And I think the census is going to be incredibly important to really get an accurate read. And I hope that we can be confident in the census results, even though this is being undertaken during COVID. But what polling I've seen nationally is that Indian Americans voted approximately 77% for Hillary Clinton and have generally been Democratic. So we'll see potentially some of that data being collected next month, and through a university poll that I'm aware of that's being conducted. But part of what we hope happens now with Kamala's selection and with more Indian Americans engaged in the process is that we'll actually see institutions starting to track and actually assess our voter preferences and all sorts of data that's important to understand our community's outlook and values.
Tell us about some of the other races. Obviously, we are speaking about the Biden-Harris ticket extensively, but there are a lot of other really interesting races going on around the nation. You did mention a couple of them earlier. What are some of the races involving Indian Americans to pay attention to?
So I think Shri Kulkarni's is going to be very important. He's running in Texas in an area where there is an Indian American community. And Texas is actually one of the fastest growing regions with a large Indian American population. And Harold Tiperneni, as I mentioned, same thing in Arizona. Also at the state level, there's some really interesting races. So Ronnie Chatterjee in North Carolina is running for treasurer. Now he's many people in politics have known him because he's an Obama administration alumni. He was in the Council of Economic Advisors there. He's now a professor at Duke. But he's a really talented candidate, and I think North Carolina is one that people don't necessarily recognize, but we have some leaders there like Jay Chaudhry, who could become Senate Majority Leader if the legislature flips there. And then Broadly, in terms of South Asians, Nina Ahmad, who is Bangladeshi American, is running for Auditor General of Pennsylvania, and would be the first woman of color ever elected to a statewide executive position in our state. So those are some really interesting races at the statewide level. And then there's a dozen or so that I would say are pretty competitive at the state legislature level of state Senate races. Jeremy Cooney is one in New York. Kevin Thompson is another. Jennifer Rajkumar won her primary, but she's someone who will be a first in her community in the New York State Assembly from Queens. And Nikhil Saval will be the first Indian American elected to the legislature in Pennsylvania history out of Philadelphia. So there's an amazing number of candidates who are making history this year.
Outstanding. It's great to see that, and certainly I've attended some of the Impact events in person. In fact, even interviewing Senator Harris there. So Impact has had its tentacles all over the country, and it's starting to bear fruit. There's no question about it. Neil, tell us finally about the effort to get Indian Americans to actually turn out and vote, and what role Impact plays into not just support candidates, but to get the community to turn out. Because I know over the years, historically, the community had not gone out in droves to support any candidate. Now there's been more engagement in recent years. What is Impact doing to support candidates over the stretch run, as well as to get Indian Americans to turn out to vote?
Definitely. So, I mean, we are engaging in programming. So we worked with South Asians for Biden and the AAPI Victory Fund to host this India Independence Day event, which Senator Harris sent in her video, and Vice President Biden did as well. So we have a number of these national Zoom events, and that's really the platform that we have and have to deal with right now. But what we learned and what we know is that the best way to turn out a community is by giving them a candidate that they identify with and that they know. So we saw that with Barack Obama, with historic African-American turnout. And I think we'll see that with Kamala. And part of what we really want to do as Impact is help tell the Indian American story as she tells her story. And I think naturally, when you hear these candidates like her, like Shri, like Hiral, like Ronnie and Nina, there are going to be many people who, if they get a chance to meet them, whether it's on Zoom or whatever format we can, they will be inspired to engage and start to think, of what our community is capable of if we enter this sphere.
And I understand that there is an effort now to raise, I believe, $10 million by Impact to support candidates. Tell us more about that effort.
So we have some very kind of significant commitments that are really going to help make this a national organization that has the reach that you're talking about, so that we can support people, whether they're running for school board or state senate or Congress or president. And it's an ambitious goal. It's definitely a target, but I think when you look at other communities, whether it's African-American, Latino, LGBT, Jewish, they all have pretty significant organizations that are backed at a comparable level. And what our goal is to work shoulder to shoulder with them and really, have a voice for our community. And I think, that's the kind of target that we need to have an organization that has chapters nationwide and is really reaching people in every community.
Well, if it's one thing that I've learned about politics over all these years of covering it, organization is key. And if you don't have a proper get out the vote mechanism, or at least support for candidates, then your voice generally gets squelched. So it's great to see that you are trying to get more Indian Americans engaged in the political process, and certainly we've seen the fruits of your labor and so many other folks that are involved in the political process around the nation. It's really great to see this engagement, and I'm glad we have two parties now which are trying to appeal to Indian Americans. Well, let's face it, I mean, in our lifetimes, it wasn't that long ago where we did feel completely on the outside looking in, and I do feel strongly that in 2020 there will be a real effort to court our community, which is refreshing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. I think uh, we are being increasingly recognized as a critical voting bloc by all of those in power, and I think that's what's going to give us a voice in government and in the direction of the country.
Well, Neil, it's always a pleasure to have you on this program, and best of luck to you and Impact moving forward. We're certainly going to be watching other events that you may put on. And by the way, just give us a quick sneak preview of what you're planning to do between now and the election before I let you go. What is Impact going to do between now and November?
So we've definitely got our summit planned, and I can't totally give you the sneak preview because I have hopefully some very exciting developments on that. I will let you know kind of as soon as we have our headliners. But we've got some serious events, and obviously we have a great relationship with Senator Harris, and are excited to support her in various ways. So I will keep you posted, and would love to be back on. And it's great to see you.
Appreciate it. Right, Neil Makhija, the Executive Director for Indian American Impact. Thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it. It's an amazing time for all of us that are from the community that understand that these are perhaps this is just the start of engagement and outreach to our community at large. It's been an amazing process for us to cover for all these years.